Okay, so you're getting ready to take on the ABCTE PTK exam, huh? At the intermediate level. That is, well, we're here to help you really get focused with your prep.
Yeah, think of this deep dive as like your roadmap through all the essentials, so you can feel really confident going into that exam.
We're going to zero in on what the exam really wants to see without, overwhelming you with too much information.
Absolutely. We're going to break down the structure of the exam, the key knowledge areas it covers, from instruction to classroom management,
Yeah.
assessments, all that. And we'll dive into those professional responsibilities too.
Oh, and don't forget, we'll cover some smart study strategies and point out those common mistakes to help you sidestep any pitfalls.
So let's jump right in. I guess first things first, what exactly is this BTK exam?
Right. Well, it's all about making sure you can actually use your teaching knowledge, in a real classroom.
It's not just about theory, right? It's about application.
Exactly. They use multiple choice questions and these essay scenarios to really assess your understanding in key areas like instructional strategies, classroom management, how you handle assessments, and of course, professional conduct.
And that focus on application, that's a big takeaway right there. So it's not just about knowing the definition of differentiated instruction, like what it is on paper.
It's about how you would actually use it in a classroom full of diverse learners, right?
Exactly how you would adapt and modify your teaching to meet those individual needs.
Okay, so speaking of instructional strategies, one of the sources we looked at brought up Bloom's taxonomy, which seems really important.
Oh, absolutely. Bloom's taxonomy is fundamental. I mean, it's not just some random list of levels.
Yeah, like remembering, understanding, applying all that.
It's a framework, a way to design your learning activities with intention. Really push those students beyond just basic recall.
So instead of just having students define a concept, you might ask them to compare and contrast different approaches.
Right, exactly. Show that they can analyze and evaluate. That's where you see the deeper level of understanding.
I see. And to really get students actively involved in their learning, the material emphasizes active learning techniques.
Oh, for sure. Things like think, pair, share, cooperative learning, all those strategies that transform students from passive listeners to active participants.
It's about them discovering knowledge for themselves, not just being told what it is.
And that kind of dynamic learning environment brings us to classroom management, which is, it's a huge part of teaching.
Absolutely. All the sources we reviewed really stressed how important it is to have clear rules and routines from day one.
It's about establishing that framework, right, that allows learning to flourish. When students feel safe and secure in the environment, they're much more likely to engage and learn.
And it's not all about just rules and consequences either. The material really emphasizes the power of positive reinforcement.
Oh, yeah. Positive reinforcement is so crucial for shaping behavior, catching kids being good, and then focusing on those proactive strategies to prevent problems before they even pop up.
But of course, even with the best planning, you know, disruptions are going to happen. So it's also crucial to have those effective strategies for dealing with them when they do.
And, that brings up a fundamental question. How do we actually know if our teaching and classroom management strategies are working? That's where assessment comes in.
Right. The materials really broke down the different roles of formative and summative assessments.
Formative assessment, those are your quick checks for understanding, during a lesson, like exit ticket, thumbs up, thumbs down.
While summative assessments evaluate learning at the end of a unit or a course,
Like a unit test or a final project.
both give you valuable information just at different points and for different purposes.
And it's not just about slapping a grade on something either. The material talks about the importance of using rubrics to ensure fair and consistent evaluation.
Right. And then using the data from those assessments to inform your teaching, making adjustments based on what your students need.
It's a cycle of constant improvement.
So we've talked about what happens inside the classroom, but the sources also touched on professional responsibilities, which are just as important.
Absolutely. They emphasize those ethical considerations that come with teaching.
Maintaining confidentiality, building positive relationships with parents, advocating for your students.
It's also about collaborating effectively with colleagues and administrators.
Right, and always acting with integrity and professionalism in every aspect of your role.
And something else they highlighted was the importance of continuous learning and self-reflection.
Because education is always evolving, right? So staying current with best practices, research new technologies, all of that is so important.
It's about being a lifelong learner yourself.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about how to effectively prepare for this exam.
Well, the sources had some great practical advice.
Since the exam really focuses on applying your knowledge practicing with realistic teaching scenarios and case studies is essential.
Yeah, it's like a dress rehearsal for the real thing.
Yeah.
Get used to thinking on your feet.
And flashcards can be a really handy tool for memorizing key terms and theories, but you got to make sure you're not just memorizing, you're understanding the concepts behind them.
Right. Rote memorization will only get you so far.
Time management is also super important, especially for those essay
Oh,
portions.
yeah, for sure. You've got to be able to organize your thoughts and write clearly and concisely under pressure.
So try simulating test conditions while you're practicing, get used to that time crunch.
And of course, don't forget those official ABCTE study materials. They're your go-to resource for sure.
And if you're someone who learns well in a group setting, consider joining a study group. Bouncing ideas off each other can really solidify your understanding.
It's amazing how sometimes hearing someone else explain something can just make it click.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about some common pitfalls. To avoid one of the biggest ones is relying too heavily on memorization without really grasping the concepts.
Right. You need to be able to apply what you know in different situations, not just regurgitate facts.
And like we mentioned before, practice writing those clear and concise essay responses. Don't underestimate the importance of that part of the exam.
And another thing, pay close attention to those classroom management scenarios during your prep.
Okay.
They pop up quite a bit on the exam.
And finally, time management during the actual test is crucial. Make sure you have enough time to answer all the questions thoroughly.
So to sum it all up, success on this ABCTE PTK exam really comes down to having a solid grasp of those core teaching principles, being strategic and thoughtful with your studying and putting in the time to practice applying your knowledge.
It's not just about what you know, it's about how you use it. And as you continue preparing, here's something to think about. We've talked about instruction, classroom management, assessment, professional responsibilities. Which one of those areas feels most aligned with your current understanding of teaching? Maybe exploring that connection further can give you an extra boost of motivation as you move forward.
It's all about finding what resonates with you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the ABCTE PTK exam.
Best of luck with your prep.
We're rooting for you.